Have you ever preached your heart out, only to be met with blank stares, yawns, and that one guy who's always checking his fantasy football score? You might be making one of these 5 mistakes. You see, preaching is hard. You're not alone. I've been doing it for over 15 years and still feel like I've really got a long way to go. And there may be no calling that is greater or more difficult, especially when you're carrying this 500-pound expectation of preaching a mind-blowing original sermon every 7 days. Because it's so hard, it's no wonder that many pastors make small mistakes in the pulpit that lead to a big disconnect in the pews. These common preaching mistakes are often the difference between a memorable message and one you're happy to forget. So here are 5 of the most common preaching mistakes that I've noticed and have often been guilty of myself. Number 1, facts without fact checking. Years ago, a pastor friend of mine emailed his sermon to me asking for some feedback. And I read it and I replied, "Hey, the sermon was great. I wouldn't change a thing, except that it's not true." You see, the content of his message was really good, but his big illustration that he based a lot of the sermon around was based on a fake photo on the internet. I did a 10-second Google search and learned that it was a fraud. If he had preached this message, how much trust could he have lost? Someone could have come to the church for the first time, realized the story was absolutely bogus, and never come back. If they can't trust one thing, they won't be able to trust anything that you say. As Abraham Lincoln once said, not everything on the internet is true. And if you didn't get that joke, you've got a problem, because the internet didn't exist until long after Lincoln. You see, you need to bring a healthy level of skepticism to everything that you see or hear or read, because in a world of fake news, disinformation, and AI-generated deep fakes, we now have to worry about wildly convincing photos and videos. Near the end of his life, someone sent me a new sermon video from Pastor John MacArthur. It looked like him and it sounded just like him. The only problem was that I had heard that he was in the hospital. He couldn't have delivered that sermon. So I double-checked and I was right. This thing was all AI. And this was the reality of the world that we live in. Anyone with a computer can now clone a voice, alter a photo, or make a video of someone doing something that they would never do. You got to question everything you hear and see. Fact check yourself before somebody else does. When you're preaching, people with their phones in their hands, they're not just reading their Bible app anymore or checking the score of the game. Many of them are fact checking you in real time. You can't afford to be sloppy or you will instantly lose credibility. Trust takes years to learn and just a second to lose. So don't make the mistake of not checking your facts. And if anything is in doubt, throw it out. I'd rather lose my illustration than my credibility. Number 2, points without a point. I sat in on a sermon once where the pastor preached too many points. The outline he handed to us at the doors had so many fill in the blanks that I got lost in all the details. And I'm a detail-oriented guy who loves those kinds of things. I love filling in the blanks and following along with an outline, but I had no idea where this man was going because his points were just all over the place. Sure, they're all good points, but I lost the point in all of his points. You see, when your subpoints have subpoints, you're probably getting a little bit carried away. So keep your message focused. It might be helpful to think of preaching like driving a bus. You need to know where you are taking people and the best route to get there. And the big idea is that destination, and everything else in your sermon should be leading your audience there. When you throw in a bunch of unrelated points, it's like one of those detours to see the thing or the world's biggest ball of rubber bands. I mean, awesome to behold, I'm sure, but you're supposed to go see the Grand Canyon. Where are we going? Stick to one central point or you'll lose people on the road. And if you have some other really great points that you would just love to make, that's okay. Save them for later. Those are sermons for other days. Number 3, turns without signals. You just told a great story. It was funny, thought-provoking, and absolutely inspiring. But as soon as the story ended, you suddenly switched directions and started talking about something else. Slow down. How did we get from that funny thing that your kid said to some old guy in the Old Testament? It's like an athlete juking out a defender. It is great in sports, but terrible in preaching when the defender is your audience and you broke their ankles with a sudden change of direction. You need to use clear transition statements whenever you change direction or move from one section of your sermon to the next. Going back to the bus analogy earlier, think of transition statements like using your turn signals. The signal is not just for you. Its purpose is to warn all the other cars on the road that you are about to turn. Transition statements don't have to be long and difficult or laborious. Often it is as simple as saying, you know that funny thing that my kid just said? It reminds me of a story in the Old Testament where a wise man named Samuel said something very similar. Boom. Transition made. We can all see that signal where you're going now. You plan to connect the story you told to a similar idea in the Bible. Wonderful. We know where you're going. Don't overlook how important a simple transition statement is in keeping everyone in the audience on track with you. And if you find this too hard because you can't bridge the gap between different parts of your message, turn back to mistake number 2. Maybe you've got a bunch of unrelated points that don't belong and shouldn't be connected. Number 4, ideas without pictures. You preach a lot of big ideas, abstract concepts, and sound doctrine. That is great. But even the best doctrinal teaching without real-world application will lose most churchgoers today. The whole time that you are weaving this theological masterpiece, they're asking, so what? How does that affect me? Selfish? Yeah, but that's reality. The problem is that you are preaching abstract ideas without giving them concrete examples that they can tie that idea to. Please keep preaching these big abstract ideas. It's wonderful, but don't stop there. Answer the questions you know that they are asking. Say, so what? How does this impact you and me? Then lay out some detailed, concrete, everyday examples of how it applies to ordinary people today. Use your words like an artist to paint a picture in people's minds. Jesus was the best at this. He would talk about abstract ideas like faith by using concrete pictures of mustard seeds and mountains. He explained the kingdom of heaven with the image of a treasure hidden in a field. Isn't that beautiful pictures there? You can see it just using those words. Follow Jesus' example. Use concrete words to explain the more abstract ideas of Christian faith. Help us to see how these heavenly concepts collide with life on earth. Your people will not only appreciate the practical teaching, but they'll also begin to appreciate theology more as they see how it works in their world today. Number 5, jargon without translation. When you live in a Christian bubble, like many pastors do, surrounded by a lot of believers all the time, it is very easy to assume that everybody knows all the Christian words and phrases and even secret handshakes. Okay, we may not have secret handshakes exactly, but many circles do have traditions when greeting one another. For example, have you ever been in church and someone says, God is good, and they may expect you to reply all the time? Or around Easter, it's not uncommon to be greeted with, He is risen, and be expected to respond, He is risen indeed. And these are great things. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with them. We don't mean it this way, but it's kind of like a verbal handshake that indicates you're in the club, you're in the know. Pastors will often use these things in their preaching too, along with other words that are foreign to anyone who isn't well-versed in Christian culture. You need to understand that if you're saying words like sanctification, transubstantiation, regeneration, incarnation, or any other $5 word that you learned in seminary, people will be confused. If there's an Asian at the end of the word, you probably need to define it or just pick a different word. Don't make people feel like they need a dictionary or a seminary education to understand what you're saying. Even words that you may think are common knowledge, like gospel, sin, glory, and salvation, need explanation. Your understanding of the word sin may be completely different than what others think when they hear that word. So I'm not saying that we should jettison these words entirely and just never say them. Far from it. They are often biblical, rich words that are part of our Christian heritage for a reason. So please use them, but define them whenever you do use them. I'm not against big words. I went to seminary, I learned them all too. So go ahead, use technical terms if you want. I do often. All I'm asking is for you to explain big words in simple terms after you use them so that you don't lose people in translation. You can't assume that everyone in your audience is on the same level as you. They aren't. If you use too much Christian jargon without translation, you're going to lose newcomers because you might as well be speaking a foreign language. So those are 5 common mistakes that I see, but there are plenty of others. So I would love to hear in the comments, what other preaching mistakes do you see? Let me know so we can watch out for those. And if you want more help learning how to preach better, go to propreacher.com. We've got a ton of resources and tools and books and courses to help you preach Christ with clarity and confidence. So go check that out.